Welcome to Comicsheik. I'm your host, Comicsheik, obviously. And today I'm really excited because we're going to talk comic books, but we're also going to talk comic books with one of my friends, a really talented indie comics creator, artist, writer. He does it all. He's actually, I'm pretty sure he's manager of my local comic book shop, the best comic book shop there is, Strange Adventures. So please, I'm being joined by none other than Dave Howlett. How you doing, man?
Good, Bash. How are you?
Good, man. I've been actually excited because I always said when I started the channel, I said the first creator I'm going to have on is either going to be Dave or Marty Keene. I told myself that I was like, it's going to be either one, whichever like happenstance makes it happen. And lo and behold, we had a conversation recently. You've been telling me about the book that you just released, All Star Composite Superman. You've been telling me about it for a while, and then we finally got the book. And as soon as that came out, I was like, this is the perfect time. We have to do it. So yeah.
Right on. Have you talked to Maddie? Are you going to have him on?
Well, it's just going to be me tonight. Me and you, actually. Marty, I'm going to get him in the future. The thing is, like, every time I want to get him on, a new issue of Steel Streets is coming out because the man is prolific as hell. It's crazy. Like, yeah. So I keep buying, like, I'm really into all his works. So I keep buying like all his other shit too. So any like zine he throws out, one shot, whatever. But yeah, I do. I think for sure we're gonna get him on eventually. I'm honestly, I got to get over like my shyness. So yeah, this is a step towards that.
Happy to help.
Awesome. So yeah, Dave, before we get right into it, why don't you tell everyone, what you've been up to recently? So we got All Star Composite Superman, and I know you have a few other things in the works. So
yeah, All Star Composite Superman or Composite Superman. I'm never sure how you say it.
I don't even know how is it. Yeah.
That's my newest thing. Just like a one-off issue that I pretty much worked on in my sketchbook over the last year and a half, and kind of then would scan it and color it. It was just kind of like something I worked on the side while I was finishing my other big project, which was a 6-issue miniseries called The Makers. That was sort of like if Galaxy Quest starred the original Image Comics founders, basically was the idea there. So sort of like an alternate history of 1990s comics mixed with like a cosmic adventure story and comics within comics, and kind of a lot of weird experimentation on the page. And then that led me to Composite Superman, and then more stuff after this soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, guys. I got to read All Star Composite Superman. I mean, I love the character too. Obviously not as much as Dave, but being a Legion fan, I do have a soft spot for the wacky character. And I gotta say, not only does he do him justice, but he adds a lot of his own flavor to the story. Obviously, does something really cool with it. And I mean, ladies and gentlemen, when you're looking at the cover right there, I'll pull it up right here. Like, if the man's leading with a Frank Whiteley homage right there, and what a homage! Like, look at that; it's just spectacular. So yeah, actually, we've got Dave's links down in the description. So if you want to pick up your own copy, you can. You can go to his link tree. He's got all the stuff set up there, and I'm pretty sure there's a few stores that are starting to carry it, right?
Yeah. There's a couple stores in Canada and the US that have it now.
Oh yeah,
I've got a bunch of them on Instagram, but yeah, I can send you a link or a list of them.
Sweet. But yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the homage cover with the Quietly All-Star Superman number 10. I kind of went back and forth on it because I kind of complain a lot about the just preponderance of homage covers. There's just so many of them, but I couldn't resist it. And I'll show you why, because I hit upon it sort of being an alternate version of that image from the actual issue. I don't know if you can see it, but where it's like Composite Superman cradling a big globe. I thought, okay, there's a bit of symmetry there. I feel okay with that.
So yeah,
but I'm not going to do a lot of it's not going to be a thing.
Yeah, we talk about that at the comic book store all the time. I mean, like, yeah, we shoot the shit all the time. I like actually joke, but maybe I'm obviously not joking right now. But when I go to the comic book store, I don't think I've ever stayed less than an hour because I'm always chatting with these guys. I stay like there forever. So
it takes you a while to get going, because when you always come in, you're very quiet and low key, and then you get talking about comics and you start getting really excited, and it's like you got to off. So yeah.
Dude, I'm in my like computer mode, I'm like, I gotta make sure I don't miss anything because I get like, first of all, you guys have a very colorful store and there's shit everywhere. So it's easy to get overstimulated if you're a nerd, and let's face it, like we're all nerds here. So man, I literally get overwhelmed like right away. I start seeing figures, comic books everywhere, and then like the new comic books are always so enticing. There's so many books, and like Strange Adventures is so good at getting like they're supporting a lot of indie creators too. So there's a lot of like cool zines and like books like I've never personally heard of. So like at the Mugshots book I picked up the other day, that was awesome. So yeah, I mean it's always fun, and I really enjoyed talking to you guys at the store. So I was like, we got to do this as well. So I'm very excited. But yeah, without further ado, here I have some questions prepared for you. And I hate to be cliche, but let's face it, some things in life they just are cliche. So I have to ask you the inevitable question of like, how did you get into comics? What's your origin story?
My origin story is that when I was probably about 3 or 4, my mom started buying me Spider-Man comics. She wanted me to be at a good reading level when I started school. And when I was a kid, there was a book called Spidey Super Stories that was like a young reader's version of Spider-Man, basically. So she used to get me those. And yeah, so I was reading from very early on, and it was comic books first and foremost. So like Spider-Man comics are some of the first things I remember reading.
Hell yeah. Okay. That's awesome, because that tells me like everyone, I feel like there's so many people who they start in their youth and then they kind of fall like they fall away from the hobby, and some they never come back. Some like come back after like way after they discover like girls or guys or whatever it is they're into, right? But in your case, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say like your whole life you've been reading comics.
Yeah, I kind of lapsed for a year or two here and there, but I would always kind of like, check out what was happening on the racks, or buy a Wizard magazine, God forbid, and just try to just see what was happening, but not fully commit. But I don't know. Eventually, there came a point where I was just in it for good, and yeah, here we are now with too many comics and nowhere to put them.
Oh my God, that's the true story. But yeah, so my next question is actually like very leads off the last question, which is, do you remember the first comic book you ever got?
I remember like a handful, like I, I really, really strongly remember having a really beat to shit copy of Detective Comics. I think it's 475, part 1 of The Laughing Fish by Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers. And, I just remember being terrified by it because the Joker is just such a psycho, right? So like, that's my first image of the Joker was like, oh, he'll just randomly kill one of his thugs just for a laugh, that's one of the first ones I remember. There's also an Avengers issue, and I'm blanking on the number, and I got it signed by Jim Shooter last year, but it's like the first time the Avengers meet the Guardians of the Galaxy, like the original Guardians of the Galaxy, part of the Korvac saga. It's in the 160s. It's like might be 169 or something, 167. Anyways, that one's
is that the same copy you got signed? The copy you owned from you were a kid?
No, that one's long lost. Actually, maybe even before that one. Actually, there's one. It's 154. That's the one. It has a Kirby cover with the Vision being chained up by Atuma from Atlantis, and it's a Perez issue where Atuma shows up and beats the shit out of all the Avengers. That one I remember having at a very early age, and I have that one now, and it's great. I don't have the original issue because I think I literally read it until it fell apart.
Hell yeah, that's the best. Like when you see something like a comic that's so loved, you just like someone really appreciated it. Owen says Laughing Fish also made for a great episode of B-Test. Yes, it did, man. It's like no wonder Dave has such good taste. Man started with the Englehart era like right away. That's his first story. It's like inducted into greatness, man.
That is a good Batman episode. The Laughing Fish. I like that one a lot. It's good. It's one of the few that doesn't have like an opening painted title page. You know how all the other ones like to show the title and there'll be a paint. That one actually just opens on like an exterior shot of like a warehouse or something. I don't know why I always retain that, but it's like of that first block of episodes where they all had the cool painted titles. For some reason, that one didn't. Anyway, you didn't ask too much information. Sorry.
No, it's cool.
Actually, series.
Owen loves movies, so like I feel like Dave is probably the person I know who knows the most about movies. It's like freaky. I used to think like I knew a lot about movies. I used to watch a lot of movies, and like you, I like all the movies, like high cinema, low cinema, like B movies. like old fucking movies. I hate when people discriminate. That's one thing I love about Scenester. Like there's a scene where one of the characters is like shitting on how people don't like old movies. It's like all the rankings are just from like the last 5 years. And I'm like, like that's true. Like, old movies there's so many good ones. Like just to deny it, like just because it's like old, I don't know. I think that's strange. But yeah, Dave knows a shit ton about movies. It's crazy. It's like it's really into it. So yeah, I'm excited.
It's sort of an obsession. I've usually got to have something on at least in the background at least once a night while I'm drawing or reading comics. So just to log it on Letterboxd or whatever.
Oh yeah, I threw in a little bit of like like this or that questions in there just to like throw you off a little bit, and then, you could like answer them however way you want, but you're gonna have to answer them. You can't cop out. So
All right.
they'll be through there here and there. But right now, I want to talk about your creative process. So a lot of the questions are going to be kind of centered on this because this is the most recent thing I've read by Dave Howlett. And we're going to have you can, like I said, I put his links in the description. So if you want to see more of his work, which we can talk about, for whatever reason, when I was getting the digital images, I was having a hard time pulling them up, but there's really cool Slam-a-rama on his store, which I have to read. I didn't pick that up last time because I'm honestly not a big wrestling guy, but I've heard it's about life and shit too. So this Scenester, and you would really enjoy this, man. You would really enjoy this. I'll tell you right now, you would really enjoy this. This is really cool. This is like the collection that I think you released in 2000. I think it's 2010. Yeah. So it collects, all 3 issues, and the original issues he did were in 2002 and 2003. So it gives you an idea of the context within the story and the time it was made. And then we've also got the makers. I got issue 1 of the makers, and it's signed by Dave. So we're gonna give these away. In a few days, we're gonna make it so like people are gonna leave a comment. You're entered into the giveaway, and we'll just draw someone randomly, and I'll send you the books personally. But yeah, like as you can see, he does a lot of different stuff, and I love it. But today, most of the questions are going to be about All Star Composite Superman because that's the most recent thing I've read, and it just came out. So let's go. Without further ado, let's go into the creative process questions. So I'm going to ask you a lot of random questions, and some of them are going to be like about older things, random things, but we'll get through it all. So first things first. Where did the inspiration for All Star Composite Superman come from?
I don't know. Like it's a comic that I read when I was really, really young in a reprint, and it just always stayed in my brain. And I got thinking about, you've read Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, his sort of farewell to the Silver Age Superman.
Yep.
Yeah, like he wrote an essay leading up to that. He wanted to be the one to sort of say farewell to the goofy Silver Age, and but he wanted to do it with love and really show his affection for it. And he just talked about how this stuff, you don't have to make it go away. You just have to use it differently. You just tell it differently. And I always thought about that. And I always loved this story. And I thought, well, what if I just it's pretty silly. If you read the original story, it's very much made for small children. But I thought, well, what if there's a way to just kind of tell it differently and make it sort of a sympathetic story about this guy? And I don't know, just sort of stuck with me. And then, a year or 2 ago, my friend Mike Drake sent me an Instagram post of somebody's drawing of Composite Superman online, and I was just like, that's it, I'm doing it this year. And then I missed my deadline by a year, but it did do it. So thanks, Mike Drake, for pushing me onto it.
I mean, you did it. That's all. Like people, I think especially when you're making your own comic, like you're self-publishing and everything, it's not the same as like when you're Jeff Johns and you're just like 3 months late, right? Like you have to do everything yourself. There's a process, and it's ironic. I think this is like a funny little mention. I don't know. Fuck, I thought I had my creating Copra thing recently because I've actually have it by my bedside because I've been reading it and it's fantastic. But yeah, I can really appreciate that as someone who, instead of thinking of it as like, oh, it's late, it's like, no, you actually followed through and you did it. And one thing that Dave said to me recently at the comic book store is that he's actually, if the reception's good, there might be some more. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know when that would happen, but ideas for titles for 2 more occurred to me, and I don't know if I want to reveal them just yet because I'm not settled on it. But it kind of like, well, this could be a trilogy. Like I have a lot of ideas for some pretty foolish directions to take it in. It would be all new stories, whereas the existing one is me retelling an existing one, or a classic World's Finest Tale. But yeah, I don't know. I could see myself doing 2 more. There's some places I could take it, I think, if anybody wanted to see it, I guess.
Yes, of course. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, buy it so we can get like part 2 and 3. Come on, let's make this a trilogy. Let's put the pressure on. Let's get the Empire Strikes Back of this of this saga right here.
That's the thing. There would be a cliffhanger at the end of 2. Like it definitely would lead a cliffhanger into 3.
Okay. You can color me intrigued. I definitely would love to see more. And yeah, honestly, guys, it's a joy. If you could see, like I was telling Dave earlier backstage, is one thing that immediately is you can tell is reading it is that Dave really loves Composite Superman. Like you can tell this is someone who really loves this character and enjoys it, and he brings that joy onto his book, and it's all over the pages, like everywhere. So, and there's some funny homages to the DC universe. There's a beautiful and a really touching tribute to Keith Giffen. There's a lot of really cool things, and that was like I didn't even know that was in there. Like that was just I was good with just the story, but you just give me all this extra stuff too, and it was quite good, and I really enjoyed it. And like who doesn't love Keith Giffen? Let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, every one of us here loves Keith Giffen. So
yeah. Well, I don't know. I was just it was so great when he joined social media, and like, oh my god, he's doing a podcast. He's got an Instagram. It's incredible. And then like we just had that brief little kind of, and he was really responsive. I don't know if you ever interacted with him online or anything, but he was really responsive, really great with the fans. And then just to lose him like that, like, I mean, I'd always heard that his health was not great. Like he didn't look like the healthiest individual, but I don't know. I'm just glad we had the time with him that we did, because he was such a meaningful creator to me. And I don't know. I hope he just got to kind of experience the love that people had for him, like, I don't know how many conventions he really did, but I think, in the time that he was on the internet like that, I think he really felt a lot of love. I hope so. It certainly seemed that way.
I liked his podcast a lot. Like when he started doing it, like a couple of years back, maybe. Yeah, he did like 1 or 2. Yeah, it was. I quite enjoyed that, but I was like sad that whatever happened. But I'm grateful. I'm still going through his Legion like personally, and I get to like really enjoy his work. And man, he was on it for so long. So he's like for me, he's just like even now, just one of my heroes because he's really been. Especially in the formative years of the Legion, like some of the best years ever on the Legion, like he was all over that. So it's really cool to see. He's a legend in a lot of ways, and I love that the DC gave him the tribute as well, right? Like they've been good about that.
Yeah, he was almost like the closest thing to like a Chris Claremont for the Legion, just someone that was sort of involved for like years and years. I mean, you probably know better than I would. I don't know how long he was involved in some.
It's crazy,
a long time
from like the mid '80s. Until like well into the 90s. He wrote different continuities too. So it's like this dude, or like same continuity, but completely different context. And like the latter half, so the 5 years later, that was all his direction. Like that was all his vision. And I always tell people, I'm like, back then it was a bit divisive. Like some people really saw it for what it was and appreciated. Others were like, some people are like, when you give them something that's a bit different from what they're used to, they kind of get repelled. So if it's like his was a darker, more serious take, they're adults here. It was almost like he read Watchmen and kind of want to infuse that into the Legion in a lot of ways. And I think he did a great job. And I always say, I think that run is ahead of its time. And I think now a lot of people are beginning to appreciate it more. The first volume is sold out. It's like out of print. And it's like $300. so it's like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know. Like I can't even get my hands on it. I have the single issues. But
yeah, I know quite a few fans of that storyline. I've never really gotten all that into it much myself, but I don't, other than his involvement with All Star Composite with Composite Superman, I don't know a whole lot of Legion lore. Like I've kind of dipped in and out of it a little bit, but I know some pretty big Legion fans, and I think they're all pretty into the 5 years later stuff. But they're also big Keith Giffen heads too.
Awesome, yeah, creator of
Ambush Bug,
Yeah.
Incredible, love him. I can't wait till that action figure comes out.
Yes,
I don't buy a lot of action figures anymore, but I got to get Ambush Bug and Cheeks.
Yep, 100%. I was literally looking at that today. I was like, in July, I think is when they're slated to release. So I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm hoping they do Heckler soon at some point. I know because that one's super deep. Yeah, I feel like Ambush Bug is loved by certain like cultish fans, but Heckler's like for the real. It's like the deep cut.
He's a very deep cut. Only 6 issues, and then like I think the only other big appearance he had was One Star Squadron. But they redesigned him. I don't know. I wasn't really down with the redesign myself. I haven't read this series. I hear it's really good, but
yeah, it was a weird take on him, that's for sure. I wasn't sure how I felt about that, but otherwise, yeah, a solid series. So I guess my next question is somewhat. I know we already talked about this, but for those watching, what was your first exposure to Composite Superman?
I had a digest reprint from 1982. I probably bought it off the newsstand that reprinted it. The original story is from 1960, I think it is, or 65. I should know this. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But so I'm not old enough to have read it in its first incarnation, but I did read a reprint of it in World's Finest Digest. Had that and a couple other stories in it as well.
And these digests, these are like the small ones, right? The small like little books.
Yeah, it's like maybe 5 by 7. Actually, I might even have it here.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
of
I
them,
have a few like somewhere. Yeah.
this guy.
Oh wow, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
This
Yeah.
this isn't the exact copy that I had. That's lost to history at this point. But yeah, just my replacement copy, which is also in pretty rough shape.
I love that. No, that's fantastic. It's well loved. But yeah, so there you go. So clearly Dave's been a fan for a minute. And so this one's a bit of a segue, but who would you say are your biggest comic book influences?
Uh, I mean, Alan Moore, Frank Miller, like the guys everybody cites. Jack Kirby is, obviously anybody
Yeah.
that you like gets a lot of their juice from Jack Kirby. So it just sort of filters down into everything else. And, he's the king for a reason. There's a reason I'm wearing this shirt. The person I find most inspiring in comics right now is Michel Fife, who I know you were a fan of as well. Just what he does on Copra, I just think is just really inspiring, just to sort of see him really just apply a really personal aesthetic to an action adventure story. It doesn't it just scratches that itch of like an action adventure comic book, but not feeling like it was made by committee and editorialized to death. So that's, I find, a big influence just in terms of being really inspirational to me. But yeah, like Alan Moore on a scripting level, like Brian Azzarello, I got really into for a while. I don't always like everything he does, but I really like a thing he does where there'll be like, there's never just two people talking. Like there'll be two people talking, and then there's like a little story, a second story going on in the background that every once in a while becomes the foreground, but then it becomes the back. And I just kind of got thinking, okay, you're telling a story, but keep it visually interesting. So, like I said, I don't like all of his work. I don't really like much of what he does other than his Eduardo Riso collaborations, which are always great. But that just really was like a big eye opener for me, was just thinking about it in those terms of like how to just kind of keep it visually interesting. Even if you're just the writer, make sure the artist has something to work with.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I am a big fan of all those creators too. So I gotta say that's some great influences right there. In terms of, I know like before we segue into this next question, I know you're working. I think just looking at your social media, I see a lot of the Discord you're posting. Is that another one shot you're working on?
That is another one shot. Yeah, it's just going to be 32 pages, no backup stories this time, just a full issue. That's just kind of like my slasher movie homage set in like a disco in 1977 where there's a killer on the loose. Just to, again, to kind of try some visual experimentation, just try get some different media in the mix and try some different storytelling tricks and stuff. And I don't know, it's pretty close to finished, and I'm hoping to have it in time for Decaf in August at Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that. Yeah. So that's very soon, just a couple months away. I can't wait. 32 pages. That's exciting, juicy, and yeah, from what I've seen on social media, it looks really cool. I love that's the thing is like I love how on the one hand you're doing like DC superhero, your take on it, and then here you're just doing like something completely different. And knowing your like love for movies, I'm really looking forward to this. So I'm sure it's gonna be great. Which is actually the perfect segue to my next question, which is what is your creative process when you're planning a new comic book or a new issue?
It's been pretty chaotic lately. Like that's before we were recording, we were talking about Michel Fife's book, Creating Copra, and one of my big takeaways is that he's just very intuitive about it, the way he does it, and that made me feel better because the last couple of projects I've worked on haven't had any scripts. I've just kind of been like, well, I want this to happen, and just kind of breaking it down in terms of like set pieces and stuff. But before that, something like The Makers, it was like really tightly scripted. Like I had a script, even though I was the one drawing it, I had these really tight scripts with descriptions of this goes here and then flashing back, flashing forward. So it's kind of different for every project right now. And I'm kind of okay with that. I don't know. I don't want to get locked into doing it just one way. I think each project benefits from a different approach, I guess.
I like that. I actually find that interesting because I have an editing question I'll ask you later, but I was particularly interested when reading Creating Cobra, like how Fife like edits himself, and he's gotten into the habit of being like a really rigid editor for himself. I thought that was really cool. I'm like, damn, this dude is like committed. Like that's how you know it's real passion. Like it oozes like from the pages. So yeah, it's really cool to see. So yeah, here's another one, and maybe I think you like touched upon this recently, but we can talk about it deeper here. What inspires you?
A lot of stuff. I mean, you mentioned movies. Like when I'm watching in movies is sometimes where I get ideas. Like Disco Ripper came from a thing where like you've heard of Inktober.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that? Like
Actually, Here's the Chris Somney Inktober piece right there.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. In 2016 for Inktober, I really went bonkers with it, and I did like 31 little kind of fake movie posters and titles and concepts for different horror movies that I was just making
Yes,
up.
I have one of those. You made
Yeah.
posters of them, right? Yes. Okay.
No,
Yes.
no, I didn't make posters of them. No.
Oh,
Those
okay.
were just I
Okay.
did the Stephen King kind of adaptation posters, but no, these were just like
Oh, okay.
purely digital and just like a fake poster, a tagline, an image, and Disco
Okay.
Ripper was one of them. And it just kind of stuck in my brain, and I thought, no, I'm going to do something with that. And then I got the idea of the guy with the mask that looks like a disco ball, and then it kind of just snowballed from there.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's so cool because I feel like sometimes it's a cool way to just, come into something. Like I feel like that just came to you. You know what I mean?
Well, but I'm sorry, I kind of got away from your original question. Is like what inspires me is like, yeah, movies is one, like that's a big inspiration for me. But yeah, other comics, like in the case of All Star Superman, that's inspired by a childhood favorite comic. The Makers was inspired by history, but also inspired by comics, and like a really great documentary that I watched about the history of Image Comics. So yeah, it just comes from everywhere. Like I saw a quote from Denny O'Neil one time where they asked him, what's the best advice you have for someone who wants to write comics? And he said, stop reading comics. So like, he didn't really mean stop reading comics, but like expand your focus beyond just that. And, the biggest innovators in comics are always the ones who are kind of bringing in stuff from outside of comics. You know what I mean? So I think you got to really look beyond it and see what you can bring to it.
Yeah. Whenever I read, it's fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. I'm sure the audience is too. But actually, like whenever like I read like a Brubaker or like Phillips collaboration, I sit there, I'm like, what the fuck did these guys do to get like into the mind space? Like, are they just like going around like creeping on people? like what? Like, how do they get into this headspace of like really dark shit, right? Like, I mean, I guess some people just have that switch because I feel like that's hard. Like personally, like I don't know, man. Like that, when you get into like the real dark comics, some of them, like I don't know how Alan Moore does it, bouncing between some really crazy shit and then going back to some of the more psychedelic shit and then going back to just like superhero shit. Like it always impresses me, to be honest with you.
Well, it's a lot like acting. I think you're just kind of putting yourself in a specific mindset, and like, as unpleasant as that might be, that's what I always equate it to. And I think Alan Moore has even made some quotes where he talks about that, of like trying to imagine himself as this type of character and how would they think and how would they react to stuff. So yeah, I think there's a real correlation there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because like so many, whenever I watch interviews of other writers, creators, artists, and a lot of that, they say something similar. It's like I really get into headspace of not just like the themes and the mood, but of the individual characters. And sometimes I think of like how their daily worlds would be. And I know Mark Waid does that a lot. And damn it, if he understands Superman well, right? Like it shows in a lot of his comics. So yeah. And here's the question we talked about earlier, which is how much revision or editing do you do in your work?
It's all pretty on the fly. Like, as I said, but then, like I said, the process keeps changing, but recently it's more just been like, as I go, I'm looking for stuff that might need to be fixed. But like with Disco Ripper, I finished it sort of on the weekend enough that I was able to look at the whole thing and read it on my phone and kind of say, okay, I got to fix this. I got to fix this. So I just made a list on my phone of like edits and revisions and stuff. So again, it's different every time, but I do kind of tend to do it as I go, which is probably not recommended, but I guess a combination of both.
Would you say there's times where you're working and you're just like you feel like something's perfect the first time around, or does that rarely happen?
Very rarely happens, and I feel like it happens so rarely that I don't always trust it. Like, so I kind of put it away for a little bit and say, like, let's not consider this wrapped yet, but let's give it some time and come back to it in a bit and see if we still like it.
I like that. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, this one's a little bit different from the creative process, but it has to do with just your influences and everything in general. What is your most memorable? I feel like I may have a feeling, but like I haven't known you this long, so maybe you have one from older. But what is your most memorable experience with another comic book creator?
With another comic book reader, sorry?
Creator.
Oh, creator.
Yeah.
Whew. I don't know. That's tough. I feel like last summer at Heroes Con, I was able to cross a few big ones off the list. Like I mentioned Jim Shooter. I met him. He wrote probably one of my first Avengers comics, the one I mentioned with the Guardians of the Galaxy. That felt huge. And he kind of remembered the script a little bit and was able to chat about it. So that was a big deal. But also,
Wow.
I met Michelle Fife there too, and he was great. So that was a huge one for me. Yeah, I don't know. I met Dave Gibbons at Comic-Con, and he did a Rorschach sketch in my Watchmen hardcover for me. And I'll have to send you a picture of it later. It's pretty cool. It's just a little quick sketch of Rorschach saying, Dave Herm. It's awesome.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, that was pretty huge. Meaning, the guy who drew probably the greatest comic book. I don't like calling it graphic novel, comic book of all time. And yeah, meeting him and getting a little head sketch, incredible.
I love that. Yeah, was that last year too, or was that?
No, this was in 2005, I think.
Oh wow, yeah. I feel like these days it's tough to get a Dave Gibbons sketch without like paying a ton. It's like somehow just being lucky, or maybe I don't know.
Well, this was also from before the era where everybody was taking it and trying to flip it on eBay. I think a lot of these guys, they kind of crack down on it because they know it's going just right back out. So I always try to make sure I get everything personalized to me so that they know I'm not going to go resell it. But I think a lot of them have kind of just stopped doing it altogether other than commissions. And I don't blame them.
Yeah. Fair. And my last question for the creative process is, I guess, a more broad one, but if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's creating comic books, like what would it be?
Don't make what you think people are at, like make the thing you want to see in the world, basically. Like, hopefully it's something people want to see too, but like the thing that you want that's not there, that's the thing you got to make. Like for me, like for instance, with Composite Superman, like every couple of years they try to do something new with him at DC and come up with some new revised, modernized origin, and it just doesn't do it for me. So I just thought I'd love to see just like a real take on that. Well, I guess I have to do it. I don't think DC's ever going to do it. So yeah, just make the thing that you want to see exist in the world that doesn't exist yet, I guess is my big one.
That's great advice. I like that a lot. Yeah. You hear that, kids? Now go out there and do it. So yeah, now I'm gonna hit you some weird questions, missed questions. Some of them can be random, and it doesn't have to be like this next question. You don't have to overthink it. Just say what comes to mind. So name five, whatever from wherever you want, 5 of your favorite comic book characters of all time.
Oh God, they're gonna be a lot of weird nostalgic. Like Composite Superman, he'd probably be in there. Wonder Man, but specifically 1970s Wonder Man with the red jacket and the sunglasses and the little belt jets that almost everybody hates, but I think is cool as hell. Hawkeye, like again, and I don't want to be like the kids today, but like a classic Marvel Hawkeye I'm more into, like 1980s, like West Coast Avengers era Hawkeye. He's a big favorite. Really like Mr. Miracle. Like he's really cool. I think just a fantastic concept for a character. And geez. I don't know. God, I'll have to leave that one open. I don't know. The answer could be different depending on what day you ask me.
That's right. Yeah, that is how it is, to be honest. Yeah, it is. So
see if I'm getting in my office to remind me. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I can't finalize it.
That's fair. No, that's fair. So we'll do this next one's fun. I don't know why. I just like to throw this one at people because I'm always curious what they say, and it's really interesting depending on who it is every time. But do you prefer? And this is just generally speaking, so you can't be like, oh, but this is better here, this is better here. Just generally, do you prefer the Silver Age or the Bronze Age?
Are we talking Marvel or DC or both?
Both.
Bronze Age.
I knew it.
Like I love Marvel Silver Age. DC Silver Age, I admire it, but I kind of have to be more in the mood for it. But Bronze Age, I'm pretty much good with whoever.
I like that. Yeah, that's what most people say too. And they feel like everything was refined better in the Bronze Age. Like they moved away from the childish stories and did a little bit more reasonable stories. So yeah, I know you're a big fan of movies. What was it like seeing the heroes you loved growing up on the big screen for the first time? I know you're a big Superman the movie fan. You've talked about how much you love General Zod. So what was that like seeing that for the first time in the movies?
Well, a bigger one actually for me as a like Superman and Superman 2, I didn't see until they came to television. Like I actually didn't catch those in the
Mhm.
theater, although I was the right age where I would have. I don't know quite why I didn't, but the 1989 Batman was a big one for me.
Of course, yeah.
And that was, I think I was 15, I think it was. And yeah, it was wild because like people don't know how good they have it now. Like the 80s was such a drought. It was just like you had Christopher Reeve Superman sequels that were getting worse with every installment. And then you had things like the Incredible Hulk TV movies that they did where he meets Thor and Daredevil, but they don't look anything like the comic books. And finally getting the Michael Keaton Batman movie where like, oh, they're actually putting money into it and putting stars. It was huge. And yeah, it was very exciting at the time. But yeah, it's I don't want to say the novelty's worn off, but I've kind of stepped back a little bit from the superhero movies. But yeah, it was very exciting in 1989. I can tell you that.
I can't even imagine, like with Batmania and everything. Like, it must have been a crazy time to be like both a comics fan, a Batman fan, and just like a movie fan as well. Like everything coming together. It's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean that's where it really people say it started with Superman, which is true, but I feel like it really took off with Batman 1989, right? Like that's what they saw the real potential.
Well, it's weird. Even then, there was still like a bit of a stumble after that because like there was Batman sequels and they made money, but a lot of the attempts to replicate Batman didn't really do well. Like, things like The Shadow and The Rocketeer and The Phantom, Dick Tracy, all of which I love, but none of them was like a gigantic hit. So it's like, it didn't really take off again until Blade. I was actually thinking of this the other day. It's almost like there's ages in the same way that there are in comics. It's like, I think the golden age is Christopher Reeve Superman to, I don't know, one of the Tim Burton Batman era ones. And then the Silver Age is like Blade to whatever came out in 2007. And then 2008's Dark Knight and Iron Man. And that's where we are now, I guess. Maybe we're now in some kind of postmodern age. I don't know what. We're in the Bronze Age of movies, I guess, post Endgame. I don't know.
That's funny. And it's interesting that you bring up the age discussion because I recall recently seeing and this, I feel like this pops up every few months in comics, but people trying to decide what should we call because the modern age encompasses like such a large period of time. If we're just referring to the modern age, mostly post-crisis, right? Like that's really when the Bronze Age ends. It's such a long period of time. So whatever we refer to the last few years, like the last 10 years, a lot of people joke like the multiversal age, and I'm like, no, please, like please no, I love The Rocketeer. I do believe that's definitely a very underrated film when talking about the pantheon of superhero films. I've actually never seen it. Have you seen it?
Oh, really? Oh, you should watch it. I think it's on Disney. I'm pretty sure it's great. Do you like the first Captain America movie, the first Avenger?
Like the Marvel one, right?
Yeah. It's same director. Yeah. And like when when he was announced for Captain America, I was just like, done. We're in good hands, because Rocketeer just has that really great kind of 1940s flavor. I guess late 1930s, but yeah, it's excellent. Love the Rocketeer.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out.
One of the most comic book accurate costumes ever put to screen too. Like,
I love how elegant that costume is too. It reminds me of the Flash, where it's like there's really not much you can do to improve it. It's just perfect as is,
Exactly. Like that helmet, it looks like a hornet is so cool, and just the leather jacket. Yeah, excellent.
So cool. Yeah, and the color palette's beautiful and everything. Yeah, I gotta check it out.
Yeah, you really should check it out. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Maybe we call the last 10 years the digital age, since that's when services like Comicsology and Marvel. Hey man, you're talking to a comic book store manager. Are you sure you want to be faking that hearsay right now?
Well, I prefer physical comics myself, and anything. It does feel like digital does somewhat spur physical sales, but I don't know how much people really see it as a threat, other than the illegal stuff, I guess. But Comicsology, is Comicsology even a thing anymore? They might be. I
don't know what's going on with Comicsology. I'm not sure if they're still operating. I don't know. That's a good question, actually. So,
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't harbor any grudge towards digital comics. It's still comics, as long as it's getting people into the art form, that's fine by me. But I prefer, my heart is with physical comics. That's what I want to read.
Oh, of course. there's always the Stan Lee boob joke that we refer to, right? With that makes the comparison between boobs and comics. And so yeah, there's that. There's like you always want to grab him, right? You want to like in person because. But of course, I don't condone this metaphor anymore. But I'm just referring to past history. So I'm just saying.
Well, I'm not familiar. Is this a Stan Lee quote, an actual one?
That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's true. Yeah, I've heard. He's like, yeah. So we could talk about it later because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. But yeah. So I guess this one I feel like you could easily say Cobra, but you could say something in addition to Cobra. So you could put two. I'll give you two. So what is two comic book series that you wish more people read and discussed?
Cobra would be one. I definitely realize it's not always something that hits on the first try. I know I bought the first round, as they call it, the first collection, the round one. And the first time I was like, yeah, it's okay. It's kind of interesting. And I kind of put it back on the shelf. And then when I came back to it a few months later, I was just all in so sometimes things just have to hit you at the right time. That's one. Kaiju Max by Xander Cannon is another one that it's over now, but it was, there was six issue miniseries or seasons they were calling them. And have you looked at that series? Do you know this one?
I know what you're talking about. I haven't read it, but I know what book you're talking about.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, it's sort of like HBO's Oz, but set on Monster Island. So it's like a prison drama starring kaiju and guards that are like Ultraman and Power Rangers type of guys. And it's really terrific stuff. It really reads. Basically, he collaborated with Alan Moore on Top 10, and it's got a real Alan Moore flavor to it, just in terms of really fleshed out world, really great characters, excellent fun stuff. The first paperback's only, I think, $10 US, and it's one of my favorites of the last 10 years, hands down.
I love that. Those are great suggestions. Like you don't hear that every day, so I'm gonna have to definitely go read it now because. Is it collected? Is it collected as well in a trade?
Yeah. You can get it in 6 paperbacks, or you can get it in 3 oversized hardcover editions too, which are filled with all kinds of cool extras and like commentary from Xander Cannon. And it's great. I met him at Heroes last year. He was a joy to meet too. Can I give you a third one? Can I sneak a third one in here?
Of course. Yeah, please.
A title I wish more people read.
Yes, please. We got some lag here.
I was actually just saying, can I give you a third one real quick?
Yeah. You're lagging a bit, so it might be delayed for me. Sorry.
Oh, okay. The third one I want to mention is Minor Threats by Patton Oswalt, Gordon Bloom, and Scott Hepburn, which I think I sold you on recently.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Yeah, it's from Dark Horse, and it's just sort of like crime drama / caper comedy set amidst the C-list supervillains of a kind of superhero-filled city. And it's really violent. It's really funny. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because Owen here, he's been pushing me to read Minor Threats for a while too. So you and him both have been telling me about it, and I finally hopped on the train, and I gotta say, it's amazing. I'm glad I did. So. Yeah.
Sounds like Owen's got good taste. That's I can't wait for issue 3 of the new miniseries. I'm so excited. I was hoping it was coming out next week. I don't think it is, but I'm waiting with bated breath.
Yeah, I love that. Owen actually says Minor Threats has been great. I actually got to meet Scott Hepburn last year and got him to sign my trade paperback. There you go. That's awesome. Lucky bastard. Yeah. I love his artwork, man. There's like a frenetic energy to it. It's really cool. It's very, I don't know, it's kind of like the same thing I like about Sanford Greens are very kinetic. It's just really cool to look at. So,
kind of like James Herron too. Do you know his stuff?
Yes, of course. Ultra Mega. Owen's read Ultra Mega too. I'm telling you, everyone here has good taste. We're all nerds. Yeah, Ultra Mega is awesome. And you guys, I feel like you and Owen both really like kaijus, so I find that really funny. It's just like two guys who love movies and love kaijus. There you go.
Well, I hope Owen's reading Dawn Runner from Dark Horse because that's a pretty cool kaiju book that's going on right now. Fantastic artwork by Evan Cagle, written by Ram V.
Yep. Evan Cagle, Eisner nominated too. Yes, I am reading that. Yes, I am. Yeah, a really good book, and honestly, really weird, really weird book. That's like part of the course for Ram V. I've just come to like his books are really like in a good way, really weird, like intriguing, almost like an Alan Moore kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my next one, I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask you anyway, because I know you, right? Like newsprint or glossy paper in comics?
Newsprint all the way. And, part of it is that I'm getting older. My eyes, which were never great to begin with, are getting worse. But just the glare off the lights that I'm trying to read by, I find on glossy paper just kind of makes it an unpleasant experience.
Yes.
So to me, I feel like newsprint is always the way to go. It's, I don't know, if I can get a hold of something on newsprint that I can, if I have the choice, I'm going to pick newsprint every time. Like,
Yes.
it kind of weirdly turned me into a Vince Colletta fan. I'm not going to say fan, but like I never really dipped too much into Kirby's Thor, despite being a giant Kirby fan, because I didn't like Coletta's inking. But we got a big collection a year or two ago at Strange Adventures of Marvel Treasury editions, and there was a Thor one. Well, I've never read this storyline. I've never read this much of this stuff. I'm going to read it, and seeing it on newsprint kind of turned me around a little bit, at least on Coletta on Kirby. So newsprint can perform miracles.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for those of you who have just heard the whole pitch from Dave right there, which I agree with everything he says. I'm a newsprint guy myself. You can see here that, sorry, I'm pulling up a certain page because I want to show it off because I thought it was really cool. You can see here, where is it? You can see here that, oh yeah, here. Look at the intro. It's so cool. First of all, this comic is beautiful newsprint. Second, look at that right here. I love that. Very like classic Saturday cartoon style intro right there. And if you know like the character, Composite Superman, if you know what he's like, you know exactly like what's happening here and how cool this is. But I just thought that, I was like, I love that. There's a really funny joke. Well, I guess I won't say, but the invisible kid joke I thought was really funny when you said it. So I actually like laughed out loud. I was like, you know what, he got me there, because I catch myself like making that same mistake too, and I'm a huge Legion fan. So
it's Kid, right? I think it's Kid.
It's Kid. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like they change, like there's different continuities where they change his name altogether. Like I know a lot of people probably don't know this, but Colossal Lad, I'm pretty sure there's certain continuities where he's called Micro Lad, and he actually like he's just naturally big, and his power is to shrink. It's just like, I'm not kidding. Like this, that's Mark Wade's like reboot.
Yeah, that sounds like a Mark Wade innovation.
Yep.
He was doing Supergirl and Legion of Superheroes, probably.
Yep, exactly. So it's like they always throw you off when they change the names. And I remember like even Mark Wade, when he was editing the not the 5 years, the one that came after the 5 years, the 0 Hour reboot, they changed like half the names of the main characters so that they had like, so Light Last was like Spark. You know what I mean? So they all had like one word names, and it was just hard to get used to. I think I forget her name, but the girl that moves through, Phantom Girl became like Phase or something, and then the other one became like Apparition. So they all had like these different names that you had to get used to. And I was like, it is what it is. But
I was saying earlier that I'm kind of burned out on a lot of the superhero media besides comics, but like I would love to see Legion get done, but like almost as like a teen drama or something, and like. Instead of giving everybody, trying to update all their code names, they could just go by their names, right? Like that would work. I don't know why I was thinking about this recently, but like rather than trying to like make them sound cooler or not too Silver Agey or whatever, I don't know. They could just be their names. I don't know. Anyways,
like a lot of them did try things like that. Kind of like Giffen kind of tries parts like that, because when you read his run, they're all kind of like, a lot of them just settled. Like they're like, oh, this person got married, they're living on this planet, they have kids, they're like running the planet, this person's like living here. It's like some happenstance that brings them kind of back together, because the Legion has to disband. Some shit went down with the United Planets where they made it so like the Legion can no longer exist. So like they all talk to each other by name and stuff. So it's like it was really cool. I'm saying it was way ahead of its time. Like it makes you think like, holy shit, it's impressive not only because it's well written and it's well crafted, but also like the themes that they were discussing, they're way ahead of its time. Like things that would apply today, kind of like how Blade Runner was like ahead of its time. You know what I mean? It's just like, I feel like a modern audience would appreciate it a lot more, because a lot of those themes are now like commonplace in science fiction. Whereas back then, I feel like they were quite innovative. And it also, you could say it suffers attrition from like, we've talked about this before, like post Frank Miller's Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, so many things tried to be like it. Post Watchmen, so many things like were influenced by. And I think in this case, I don't think Giffen was trying to do that. I think he just was so like wowed by Watchmen that he was thinking in those themes, thinking in along those lines. So you could see this is like what he would have done if he were doing something similar.
I think I'm coming at it from the wrong angle, trying to imagine what it would be like as a movie or TV show. Like there's no comic right now. There should be a Legion comic right now. It just needs, like what I'm saying with Composite Superman. Like they just need to come up with the right approach. And I think it's out there. I don't know. Like I just had some ideas, but I'm not going to say them because I don't want to give them away. But I don't know. Like I think there's things you could do that would be kind of cool and current without I don't know, betraying the original concept. I don't know. There's always a way. They just I guess they're just kind of letting it be for right now.
I agree wholeheartedly, and we're just waiting. A lot of people say Hickman, like he would have done. I think Hickman would have been a good fit for Legion. Like you could see a lot of those ideas in the Krakoa Age of X-Men were definitely for Legion. Like they were originally for the Legion pitch, but he retrofitted them to the X-Men since that's what he got.
Oh, I didn't know
That's
that.
ultimately, yeah, you could tell because he was, they were like Legion, like he was this close to coming for DC to do work on Legion, but then Marvel threw X-Men at him, and he was like, okay, you got me. Like I'll
Hmm.
do X-Men, and he had full creative control, but didn't always go as things don't always go as planned. We'll say that. My next question. We don't have many left, but this is what I enjoyed putting together. Aliens or Predator?
You mean like as a franchise or like a creature?
Just generally, which do you prefer? Which do you enjoy more? Aliens or Predator? Comics, movies, as a franchise,
You
everything.
are going to regret asking me this because I've got a complicated answer. I really like. I'm really snooty with Alien as a franchise because like I absolutely love Alien. It's like one of my top 3 or 5 favorite movies of all time. Aliens is a perfect sequel, one of the best sequels ever made, one of my favorite movies. I don't like Alien 3 very much. I think Alien Resurrection is fun, but not really up to the potential of the first two, or not up to the level of the first two. And I absolutely hated Prometheus. I haven't seen Covenant, and I'm not sure if I want to see the new one. Hey, Zora. That's not Zora. I don't know who that is.
Just a friend. Yeah. Hey, Black Guy, how you doing? Yeah.
Where was I going with this? But Predator, I like every Predator movie. I like every movie that has the Predator in it. Even if it's bad, I don't care. I just think they're fun. And this includes the AVP movies. So I hold Alien to a really high standard, and Promethea. I don't regard Prometheus. Predator to a much lower one, but I always have a good time watching a Predator movie. Whereas I might get angry watching an Alien movie. So I guess Predator's the answer.
I like that. I mean, I'd have to agree. I like Predator a little bit more myself, but I feel like either way, you can't really go wrong, right? Like, but I agree with your analysis of the I guess the quadrilogy at this point. And it's funny because David Fincher is like one of my favorite directors. I just don't know what really happened with like Alien 3. I'm not like really sure what the deal was there.
There's a lot of studio interference. It was a pretty unpleasant experience for him apparently, and he doesn't appear on any of the making of documentary and stuff. Like he just doesn't talk about it. So yeah, I don't blame it on him, but it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, no, fair. I respect that. So the next one, Star Wars or Star Trek?
When I was a kid, I would have said Star Wars, but in the last 10, 15 years, it's Star Trek.
I respect that a lot, actually. Yeah.
Like Star Wars is always going to mean a lot to me. Like I've seen those original 3 movies. I don't even know how many times, but Star Trek, I just feel like is a little more what we need now in terms of like just where it does by way of science fiction address real issues. And, it's about an optimistic future where everybody kind of puts aside their differences and comes together to explore the galaxy in peace. And I just think that's a really hopeful message. And it's just kind of nice to watch a show where we've got it all figured out instead of we aren't all, or like a franchise, I guess, shows and movies where we've kind of got it all figured out. So as much as I love Star Wars, it just, it's fantasy. Like, I don't really consider them sci-fi. It's just fantasy, but Star Trek is, I don't know. I feel like it has more real world applications, I guess, but
yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I wholeheartedly agree. And even as a fan who, like, I would say I'm starting to approach that like that thought myself, because for me, I would have said Star Wars, and in some ways, I probably may still say Star Wars, but it's starting to water down, with the amount of content they put out there. And while some were returned to form, like Andor, I feel like Star Trek, like when you look at especially the original, like the original series, like the original one and then Next Generation, like they're so well made. And then the movies, the first 3 are incredible. I haven't really seen beyond them, if I'm being honest. I've seen the one reboot with Chris Pine, thought that was okay. I think both. I've seen the first one, then Wrath of Khan, not Wrath of Khan, the one with Khan, Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan. Yeah, Darkness, Into Darkness. Yeah, I saw that one. But I have to say, like overall, I'm starting to lean more towards like Star Trek, because it's first when you see so much of Star Wars and a lot of it just becomes meaningless. But like with Star Trek, I still have those really fond memories of watching like the Next Generation, growing up on like 1, 2, and 3, the movies, and I'm starting to appreciate it more and more for the same reasons like Dave said. Like it has more real world application. It feels more like true sci-fi, whereas Star Wars definitely feels like a space fantasy, like it's space opera, right?
Yeah, and nothing against that. Like I said, I love it, but it's just
Yeah,
as you said too, we're a little saturated with it. Like there was,
yep,
it seems crazy to me to remember that there was a time where there was really just 3 live action movies, and then like novels and comic books and video games or whatever. But just to think where we're at now, it's like
yeah, it's crazy.
it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
I don't know. And also like Star Trek, it doesn't feel like as high stakes whenever a new Star Wars comes out, a new Star Wars thing, like everybody explodes. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of fighting, and Star Trek just kind of usually quietly does its thing in the background. And I love Strange New Worlds. I can't wait for that to come back. I feel like that's the best Star Trek incarnation in a long time. It's kind of got the right elements of all the different versions, and yeah, I love it.
I'll have to check it out. My other friend, he's a big sci-fi guy. He's actually also recommended it to me several times. So yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out at some point. But yeah, so I don't have many questions left here, but the last few I've saved were just really fun ones. Pick Dave's head here, just random stupid questions, but ones I had really fun coming up with. So here's one: if you could be the sidekick of a superhero for a day, who would it be?
Probably Captain America. I don't feel like he'd get you killed. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. He came back, but I don't know. I feel like you would learn a lot from him. Like I think Batman would probably just be a dick, and Superman would probably just be like, "Just stay over there. Let me do my thing." He wouldn't really let you get involved. I think Captain America would be a good. You would learn a lot hanging out with him for a day. How's that? That's a pretty nerdy answer.
I like that. He's pretty warm too. Like I feel like he'd be like really nice. Whereas Batman would just be like giving you like a lesson in brooding 101, just like never taught you. All right. So my next one, purely I like that answer a lot. My next is purely hypothetical. Here it is. So these are 2 scenarios. Iron Man calls you wanting to invite you to Avengers to his headquarters, Avengers Tower, and his armory. Including you, allowing you to fly with his armors and more. So really just a free reign to have fun and do whatever you want. Avengers Tower, fly the armors, but only restricted to the Iron Man part of it. So you can't go to any of the other hero stuff. On the other hand, Batman calls you wanting to give you a tour of the Batcave with permission to drive around his Batmobile and any of his Batplanes. Which one are you choosing?
Batman. Like
Yeah.
I've got a longer relationship with Batman, I guess. Like I wasn't really an Iron Man kid. I knew him as one of the Avengers, but I didn't really buy his book or anything. Whereas Batman's kind of always been there. And you want to go see the giant penny. You want to see the giant T-Rex. Of course, you want to drive around the Batmobile. The only question is which one, like which version.
It's true.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to touch the planes, but I'd like to see them. I don't think I want to
no, I'm not gonna touch the planes. That's right. Like it's the one thing I remember from the Flash is like how cool the Batcave was. Like that's the only thing I feel like I remember fondly of the movies. Like when they go to the Batcave, it's really cool. Oh wow! Oh my god! Okay. I mean, you're not missing much, to be honest. I feel like you're more
just sort of pieced out for I'm just taking a little break from all that for now. I'll come back to it, but I just needed a little time away.
That's fair. That's fair. It happens to all of us. I've went through the same thing recently with Marvel in a lot of ways. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all my questions for now. But I just want to remind you guys that Dave just released his newest comic, All Star Composite Superman. It was just was it a week or 2 ago, right? So very recently.
Yeah, it was last week. A week ago today, I think.
There you go, guys.
Actually, beautiful. Sorry, 2 weeks ago. Sorry, my bad.
Printed on newsprint, awesome stuff. Looking at one of DC's coolest and wackiest characters. Look at that great Frank Whiteley homage right there. I loved it myself, and I'm going to be doing a review soon on the channel. So we'll go through the issue and talk about what I really liked. Pretty much all of it. And like we said, there's a really cool Keith Giffen tribute in the back. So if you're a Keith Giffen fan, there's that to look forward to as well. And there's plenty of other books on the Dave store. I really like Scenester, and I think people like Owen, if you're really into movies and comics, obviously, you'll do Scenester. And then we're also giving away some comics. So this is what I'm giving away. I'm giving away one of these. This is The Maker's #1 by Dave, and it's signed by Dave right there. We're going to give that away on its own to one lucky winner. And all you got to do is just leave a comment You can say whatever you want, and I'll qualify you, enter you into the giveaway to be part of that, and I'll send you the books depending on who wins. Do a random draw, and then the other giveaway will be. So here's the second copy of the Makers, and obviously these are not my own copies. So the other giveaway will be for both of these, for the Makers #1 and for All Star Composite Superman #1. So yeah, make sure you leave a comment. I'll enter you to be part of the giveaway. Check out some of Dave's good comics. Spread the word. Let me and Dave know, of course, what you thought about the comic books when you do get them. And yeah, I think you guys will really enjoy them. I know I did. And that's pretty much it from me. I want to open the floor for Dave here to just let us know where we can find his work or anything else that he wants to promote.
I'm mostly on Instagram these days. Paschetti Western is my handle, but you'll have it in the show notes probably. It's
Yep.
too long to explain. It's kind of a dumb joke. I am on Facebook, but not all that much. I'm not really on any of the other stuff. Instagram is usually the best place to find me. And if you are near a Strange Adventures location, they've got my stuff. Plus a couple cities. I'll have to send you a list of which cities and which stores carry it, but there are other stores you can walk into and buy. But Instagram is usually the best place to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can find, I put his Instagram in the description as well, so there's a link to it there. And if you ever are in the Halifax area, please drop by Strange Adventures. I mean, fantastic store. They have a great selection of comic books. There's a good chance you'll see Dave there, depending on the day. And yeah, you can find his comic book there. They stock it as well at our local comic shops. So I find that like a huge relief, because I just walk there. I just literally walked there after work the other day. Right as like he just texted me like, "Oh, it's out," and I walked after work within 10 minutes and picked up the comic. I was super happy. So. Yeah, please leave a comment, guys. Easiest way to get copies of these books. I'll more than happily send them out to 2 lucky winners. And yeah, let us know what you thought of the comic, guys. So thank you so much for joining us today, ladies and gentlemen. It was a pleasure talking with you, Dave. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime when you release your next book. I mean, definitely after Disco Regrets. We'll have to talk about that.
Hey, anytime. Yeah, let me know.
Awesome. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Keep on reading. Peace.